Well, welcome back to part two of our two-part series on the new rules for midlife health. We are talking today to Dr. Devan Szcepankski, and she is someone who, if you didn't hear part one, you need to go back and listen. But she is a MD who also combines elements of functional medicine into her practice, focusing specifically on genomic medicine. And it's incredible. If, again, you're going to hear a lot when you go back about that to part one. But today we're just picking right back up in part two on how do we work smarter, not harder, on our midlife health. So I want to jump in and start today, Dr. Devan, with the heart. We know that heart disease is I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the number one killer of women who are in midlife. Okay, well, let's first talk about what changes are happening that increase our cardiovascular risk in midlife and what do we do about it?
Okay, so I would say, well, a lot of things. I think that one of the things that is overlooked or maybe not talked about enough, which goes back to our first session, is actually looking at how your autonomic nervous system, so your heart is automatic, right? You can't really tell it to do one thing or the other. I think where we have missed the boat a little bit, especially with women, because most of the studies were done on 55-year-old white men. So I'm not sure how that applies to. Anyway,
all of us.
But for what it's worth, that's where we're at. You have high cholesterol, therefore you have increased risk of heart attack, therefore, and then now you're on this trajectory and no one as a woman asked you, instead of focusing on your cholesterol, started talking to you about your stress, your hormones, your sleep. And again, because it's my love, kind of genetically, how your body is made. And so I would say a lot of what we call, and I think maybe even some of us live in fear of this sudden heart attack. And when we say the number one killer of women is that, I guess I would want to qualify that statistic in that, are we even doing an adequate investigation of what is going on with women way before that? Does that make sense? And I think that we're doing maybe better, but we are far from. And so I think that is in part, yes, our American lifestyle, but I think that the healthcare system has a huge role to step up and do better with regard to how we do preventative care. I don't love that. I mean, to me, it's like that statistic is that there's something wrong with women, and or that that's what we all need to worry about in midlife. And I don't really love that, because that's kind of taking your eye off the really personal way of just treating your day in and day out health. So for what it's worth, but I would argue that a lot of things go into that number or into that event. And that's where we're missing the boat. So it's not just as easy as, oh, don't eat fat, and therefore you'll decrease your risk of a heart attack. And I think that's still a common bend of anyone. Or you need to really worry about your LDL number, because if not, you're going to have a heart attack. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or estrogen. I hear people talk a lot about, okay, well, we don't have estrogen anymore, so I better figure that out.
Right. So and it's good. All of that conversation is happening and it's awesome. But again, if our statistics of how we do things historically is based on a 55-year-old white male, that research on what meds you use, and if 20 years from now they prevented that heart attack, it's just not applicable to anything that we've done for women. Because exactly what you said, estrogen, let's start there, right? What does estrogen do? It helps your cardiovascular system and your smooth muscle, and keeps your smooth muscle strong, and the intima of the lining of the vessels, and so many things, right? So I guess my big thing would be just checking your cholesterol and saying that A plus B equals C in terms of heart health, especially as a woman, is way too simple of an equation for what we know now and how our bodies are built. I would challenge anyone who has ever made a decision based on one LDL to start taking a statin every day and or change their diet in a certain way or whatever it may be, because of the fear of that heart attack, to really dig a little deeper in what are all the things that are playing into that number that may or may not have anything to do with your risk of a heart attack. The knowledge is out there and it's really exciting, but root for that as women in general, for sure. In particular, when we talk about genomics, there's something, have you guys ever heard of methylation? Okay. So back before I knew about genomics, you qualified to test a patient for something called MTHFR if they had multiple miscarriages. So if you had something happen multiple times, now you all of a sudden qualified to test for a genetic variation, because we knew at that time, this is way back, that if you had that, it's possible that you would clot a placenta. You had increased risk of clotting, particularly because of high levels of homocysteine. So why would we not check MTHFR in any woman if we're worried about a heart attack? Right? Especially if you have high LDL. Let's say it that way. Is that the standard? Absolutely not. Should it be? Absolutely. And what's the treatment for so said MTHFR? It's just taking the right kind of vitamin. How easy is that? Right? So I have discovered these things just because I keep asking questions. And when you start finding the answers, it gets really exciting. It gets really exciting to say that heart disease is not just one LDL number. And in fact, in some people, you're totally missing the boat. I've done tests on people who the homocysteine's through the roof. They are completely hindered on their whole methylation pathway, and they are on a statin with an LDL of 40. Now they're not making any hormones anywhere, right? And no one has ever said, even if we say you should take this medicine, you should absolutely address the homocysteine, right? That's inflammation in the vessels that we've known about for a long time related to fertility. So if you start putting all the pieces together, you can rationally make sense about what we haven't done well. And I think women just maybe a little bit more have to start rooting for that, right? And asking them the question as well.
So let's talk about the process of rooting for that in an average person's life. Women can find a practitioner, perhaps like you, that is looking at things from different perspectives. But let's say she can't access that for whatever reason, because of where she lives or because of her resources. How would you advise women to start doing this kind of information seeking if they don't have access to a practitioner who is speaking like you're speaking, but they want more of it?
I think self-education is huge. And so I love that your phone can give you biofeedback. The Ring can give you biofeedback. You can now order online a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor that you can wear at home for 2 weeks and get a ton of information on how your glucose changes throughout the day for 2 weeks straight. That is very insightful and very individual to the patient. Maybe you are only drinking coffee and you're fasting all through the day because you think that's what you should do. And maybe from a sugar standpoint, it is rocking your world. That's totally the wrong thing. Right. So I think education, self-education, now that can get overwhelming because in the wellness world, there's a lot, but then add in what can you do in your home to know more about how your body is working, right and wrong. And we have a lot of tools for that. Again, with all this biofeedback, if you will, and working smarter and not harder, like Krista said, to me, then get smart about how your personal body works. And I would argue you do not have to be super smart or a doctor to figure that out. And I would go so far as to say each one of my patients knows their body way better than I do. It's just about being able to provide the framework to have that conversation. I would just say, as far as supplements and things, I think everybody could use omegas and really start to look at ratios of things you're doing with your diet. Obviously not processed foods. I mean, the basic things that we all need to hear sometimes, I think they're just underrated. Again, if you're going to a doctor, and we all know women who look great, and then you do their labs and it's like, oh gosh. So it's not all what's on the outside, it's understanding the inside. And then if you're going to a doctor and they're telling you have high cholesterol, but no one's talking about processed food or not, or are you sleeping, or what's going on in your life? You really just need to be looking at kind of all those different aspects and control the controllables. And then the other stuff, you got to sometimes be able to put those to the side and just make the small changes. But having some kind of biofeedback that you can take out your own personal bias, right? I think is super valuable and very powerful for patients. We're human beings. Like you want to see what your actions are doing, right? You want to measure it. And so I think that's an easy thing to start doing.
So let's talk fasting. In the last few years, I'd say become a fan of Dr. Mindy Pell's, who is the Fast Like a Girl. You've probably read that book, Eat Like a Girl. Right now, I'm doing one of her fasts. So what are your thoughts on fasting?
I think the idea of fasting makes a lot of sense from how were we 100 years ago, like Alex said. So I think that I like the talk about it. I like even that there's a girl way to do it. And if that's all you have, I think it's probably a good thing too. Like I like her research and stuff, but I would argue that for some people, it's the wrong right thing. And for some people, it's the wrong thing to do right now. So for example, if you have major cortisol stress issues going on, certain fasting may help that, and certain fasting could actually make that worse because the body is in already a stressful state. So that's where I think it's super cool to wear a CGM when you're doing a fasting or changing anything really. Because I've had patients who, when they were fasting, that first meal they ate rocked their world, their sugar went through the roof, and they were actually working against themselves long term. Versus I have people who the fasting was the game changer. So what you get out of what you're putting in terms of a fasting program, in a large part, I would say, does matter of where your metabolic communication is. But I do like it overall.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Sleep. Let's talk sleep. You've mentioned it several times. So talk to us. And sleep tends to be, I would say, one of the most frustrating parts of midlife for a lot of women. So what's happening? Why are we not sleeping? And what impact is that having on our bodies?
I think there's a lot of things that impact that. That's where I think biofeedback is great. But I think restorative sleep is something that definitely through history has not been given the credit it is due, and it is now. And clean restorative sleep at that. So like sleeping medications that were given very liberally, I would say, back in the day. I was there when it was like, oh, Ambien is amazing. Everybody should get it. And those have been detrimental. But I think then you take a look at why are those so bad? Above and beyond, I needed to sleep, right? Oh, because they interfere with natural GABA production, which actually is now related to dementia. So then you can back in and say, okay, so then what is important for us? GABA production and restorative sleep. And sleep stacking is kind of a new thing that people are talking about. I think it's all great.
Wait, what's sleep stacking? I don't know sleep stacking.
Like if you need, so the idea that you could probably go, if you got to, say you're going to travel and you're going to have jet lag. I'm kind of making a dramatic one, but then the week leading up to that, you really want to be diligent about getting your sleep. That kind of idea. So GABA is the main thing in the brain that kind of regulates sleep cycles. So I just told you, progesterone and GABA kind of go hand in hand. They talk. And then genetically, some people make really good GABA and some people don't. So understanding how your body's made and where it is, you can definitely sometimes do little bitty things that all of a sudden, oh, I'm sleeping again, right? I would say the other thing that plays in is, again, that cortisol, because if you are someone who is super tired at 2 p.m. or waking up at 2 to 3 a.m., so we're like wired and tired, right? That's your adrenals until proven otherwise in my book. We're talking about stress, we're talking about sleep cycles, and we're probably doing adrenal stuff during the day that all of a sudden now you're sleeping at night, or vice versa. So I think that gets overlooked too. And then we're quick to just say, oh my gosh, well, you got to get some sleep. Here's a medicine. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. Some people need to just get some sleep for a minute and reset. So again, it's not that we're against those pharmaceuticals, but there are so many ways to be intentional and get better restorative sleep. And I think as you age, it could very possibly be one of the most important things. That is when our bodies heal. That is when our brain heals. That it's very important. But we don't all need the same amount either.
Yeah, that's good to know too, because
a lot of times it's interesting. I mean, and hormones are huge for that. Like it's, I love when, a woman comes in and there's a sleep problem and you're not even really thinking about the sleep problem as a priority, but you do some other stuff, you get the hormones right. And all of a sudden like, I'm sleeping like a baby, I had a patient the other day. It was funny. She said she was new coming to see me and she said, my friend gave me this progesterone and I slept amazing. I'm here to get a prescription of that. So it was like, I love that you shared that with me.
Yeah. Well, I just went on progesterone this probably 6 months ago, and it has helped with sleep for sure. Yeah.
So nice when you can, I mean, even like I'll have some younger women use a topical progesterone rub at night and it's a game changer. And it's like how simple, it's just exciting that you could do something so simple and natural and think about the downstream effects of that one small thing.
Yeah.
Rather than giving someone a medicine and now they think they have a disorder.
You mentioned in the first episode about the triangle and gut health being one of the tips of the triangle. Can you talk a little bit about gut health, about what you think women should know in midlife? What's important to be thinking about and asking as they're considering their status of their health right now?
Yes. One of my most favorite things is when someone comes in and she's like, I don't have any gut issues. I mean, I'm a little bloated here and there, maybe especially around my period or ever since menopause, but that's normal. I'm like, this is going to be so fun. Because that is not normal. And so I say all the time, I never thought, I mean, I'm a family medicine doctor. It's not like I really thought I would be analyzing poop as one of the most fun things I do, but it really it's very important. At the most basic level, if your gut is not working correctly or as best as it can for you, then shame on me if I'm going to give you a diet, a medication, hormones, thyroid, whatever, all these things to do that really first and foremost rely on your gut to absorb it and process it directly, right? Our gut needs to absorb nutrients and excrete toxins at the most simplest form. I think it is very important, especially in midlife, because now you're really metabolizing hormones and other things through the gut to understand way before you just need your screening colonoscopy how your gut is working. Is the microbiome, your soldiers in there, are they working against you or for, are they off? And then even just how the body is processing and digesting things. And sometimes it's really simple, but instead you often will say, I'm bloated and I have indigestion, and you get told, okay, take Nexium. Well, what did we just do? We just suppressed. No one said, well, why are you bloated? Why are you having indigestion? It's not that hard to figure out usually. And now you're on a medicine that, okay, well, if you got better, then it was GERD and gastritis or whatever. So just keep taking that. Then over time, right, our gut is not even doing what it's made to do. And that's starting off with the digestion from the get-go. So that's just one example, but I think a lot of people can relate to that. So that's why gut is part of our main initial look at your overall wellness. Because I don't want to ask you to do or write your prescription for a medicine if your gut isn't working. Mm-hmm. So I think it's super important. And we're talking about midlife, but we do, one of my partners at our New Orleans clinic, we do a lot of pediatric patients. And that's why she thinks the gut is the best, right? And it is incredible. You clean up a kiddo's gut and they can't tell you, right, when we're having gut problems, and the brain just starts to work. And that's true with women too. I mean, it is, the gut-brain axis is huge. And so if most of your serotonin and your happy juice is coming from your gut and your gut's off, well then all bets are off.
Okay. So give us like, what food should we eat to increase our gut health?
Well, I'll tell you my most recent aha that I didn't know. So we just added a panel of genomics for gut. So I've done gut testing, gut mapping for 8 years. And you can imagine now I have this DNA that I can back into why I saw what I did in certain patients on their gut map. It's very interesting. So I had patients who we would tell them based on their DNA, okay, go dairy free, go gluten free. You need tons of vegetables. You need red meat. So I do like, do you know that this is a side note, the guy who wrote the book, A Diet for Your Blood Type.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, he was onto something because that's really looking at DNA. I mean, in a much more simpler sense, but so I kind of like that idea. But in general, I would say processed foods are just a problem. Mm-hmm. But you can get caught up in, okay, so now I'm going to do I'm going to eat spinach every single day. That can work against you too.
Oh, it can? Because that's me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So we are made to eat seasonally off the land and migrate. So the further that's when we talk about the wrong, right thing. I'm really at the beginning of that whole mantra came up when we started talking about gut and food, because you can do the wrong, right thing to a big fault. Okay.
That's probably me.
And it's easy, right? You want to do the same thing every day. Mm-hmm. It's easy. Think about it, and it can easily turn into a protein bar or whatever. And in our day and age, for the women out there who are already doing the right thing and what the heck's going on, it's probably that you're overdoing the so-called healthy thing. Mm-hmm. So the green smoothie every day. That's
me.
Okay. Well, so
the flaxseed, the spinach, the
same exact thing every single day. 3 times a week might be awesome. But like, you are literally not made to have the same thing every single day. You got to change it up. It's very hard, actually. So we do food sensitivity tests a lot, just to give insight into, like, is there a big food group right now that your body doesn't like? And so you can just get some direction. Well, so on the new DNA panel, there is a test for starch degradation. So that has been super aha, because I've had patients who say, well, I did the gluten, I'm not doing the process, and I have a lot of my patients have the intention and resources to really, I tell them to do something, they're doing it, oh man, why am I? And so that has been so insightful. It's like, wow. So it's not really, you can be gluten free and you can eat a lot of starch. You can eat healthy whole food starches. Mm-hmm. So that's been awesome. It's like, oh, okay. So your body genetically is never going to process high quantities of starch well. So you go back to how you're eating and when you're eating, in what order, even, right? Even at the restaurant. And you put the starch to the side and all of a sudden the belly's fine. But nobody was ever making that connection. So I just think the more you can understand about what your body is built to do well, and then what you can actually feed it better information to do better. And it's so incredible how amazingly unique and different we are. And the more we have tried to say, everybody needs to get put in this bucket. Everybody who, has high cholesterol needs to not eat red meat. I mean, every time I hear that, I'm like, oh. Yeah. You may or may not. I don't know. But I'm not saying carnivore's for everybody, but it could be a game changer for the person who, whose body is really built to receive all of that well. So I just think the more you can know about yourself, and I don't think it's certainly not as hard as it used to. We're in the information age or whatever you want to call it. I think that more is better in terms of that.
Okay. Well, interesting, because I have heard there are certain things that are just generally better for everyone. So if you're eating sour foods for your gut, and maybe that's not true, but aren't there some things that are universally good that I think anyone can harness the power of? Like blueberries, for example.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. So yes, but guess what? You can overdo blueberries. So when I was doing my neuropsych graduate school, so I was looking at all this research, and they were doing research on dementia, and they were proving that in mice models, you could feed mice blueberries and it was better than any dementia medicine we have. And I was like, this is so cool. 23 and this is just amazing to me. So I'm going to eat blueberries like every single day, and blueberries are good. And if we have a dessert, I'm going to make blueberry cobbler and blueberries. more is better. So fast forward, I have some stuff goes on. I get diagnosed with colitis. And I'm like, and they're like, oh, it's stress, Dr. Szcepankski. Your colonoscopy looked fine. Take this medicine when you feel belly cramps. I'm like, I just know that there's more to it. Like, I am healthy. I'm eating a lot of blueberries. And I got real sick right after. It was like Easter, I think, I told you I'm Cajun. So we had everybody over and we have a ton of blueberry cobbler because that's my specialty. And we have, we're Cajun. We got crawfish and we got, all this seafood. And anyway, so sure enough, I do a food test and guess what's on it?
Wait, what's on it that you shouldn't be having?
Yes, absolutely. I was super hypersensitive to blueberries and seafood. And I could go through the list and it was like healthy thing. Oh, cane sugar. I was like all the healthy, everything. I had all the healthy ingredients in every single thing I ate all the time. The same every day. So again, Krista, I will say, yes, blueberries are good. Mm-hmm. But at some point you will not harness the power of a blueberry if you have done it for too long.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And too high of a dose.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Super, really interesting. I think that's fascinating, that story. How do women advocate for themselves when their tests come back normal, but they don't feel well?
Okay. So love that. Anytime, and I do this when I teach practitioners, anyone who tells you my test, it was normal, or I did this and I feel this, but I just don't know why. Mm-hmm. Your hormones are off. And somebody didn't look deep enough or ask the right questions. And I would almost, I'm not an always person, but if you feel like X, the test was normal, but you just don't know why, something's not normal for you. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I was never, I guess, and maybe this is the Cajun in me, I don't know. I'm never satisfied for myself or for my patient for sure in saying, oh, we just don't know why. Mm-hmm. Why would I ever want to tell someone that? Or I'm just going to refer you to the next specialist just because. And I think that we have gotten in that rat race to a fault. But I want to believe, and I do believe, that doctors don't actually want to do that. That's not why they went to med school. So we need to use modern science and keep asking more questions to understand forever the way our bodies work, the way they're built to work, and the way they're working right now in the environment that we have built around us, and how we can always continue to do better. And I will tell you, one of the most amazing things most recently, so when I got into genomics, when you start understanding that, then back then there was a lot of talk about epigenetics. Have you ever heard about epigenetics?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. It's fascinating. Epigenetics is the idea, right, that you do pass on your genome, but you also pass on, to a certain degree, what kind of is actively working off your genome at that time, called epigenetics. So it's like, your Legos that you're handed at birth, and then how you can put those together at any moment in time. Right. Mm-hmm. And so what's really interesting is that one of the ways in which we discovered epigenetics was a community. I want to say it was in Sweden. I need to look up exactly where it was. I always get my S's wrong. But anyway, they kept family trees for thousands of years.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And if you went and looked back, there would be a great grandfather who lived in a time of famine. And they could predict that the great-grandson, 4 generations later, how many greats that is, would have diabetes, even though he was not living in famine. Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. And so that's when they started saying, oh, so it's not just genetically what you're passing on. You're actually, as you're interacting with your environment, that in a protective way can get passed on and can perseverate despite the environment changing for 4 generations. And we've shown it in mice, and now we've proven it. And it's very biblical. So to me, it's incredibly fascinating, the technology we have to understand where we come from, why we are the way we are today, right? And then how we can understand more to do better. That not only changes what we do now, in our world today, and I get all excited and teary about this, but we really have an amazing opportunity to change the trajectory for the next generation and the next and the next. And that's exciting. At the same time, I think we do, to a certain degree, we live in like Krista, when you said, oh, my body's never worked right. I mean, that's in part not all you, right? That's kind of what you've been dealt with. And it's not for you to have a victim attitude at all, but it's like, you are who you are and part of what you're doing, but you're having to work against other things that we're doing and other things in the environment. And so I think it's such an incredible opportunity that the more we can know and the more we can kind of undo maybe the wrong trajectory, win it, and do more of the good things, then we kind of set us off into a different trajectory for those after us too. So that's where I think the more we can root for, even in terms of midlife women, like understanding how our bodies are made. I mean, what an incredible time to be able to really feel comfortable even doing that, right? So, and you can use data and science. It's not like you just feel, well, oh, you're a woman.
I love this idea of legacy, that we actually, in addressing our particular health, will pass on. I mean, that's really a beautiful thought. It's incredible. Okay, I want to end today by doing a little bit of a rapid fire. So I'm just going to ask you a question and you just answer. You don't explain it. You just do your one-word answer. Okay, you ready? Okay. One habit that gives the biggest return on investment
for any woman in midlife. I guess I'll just go back to weight training.
Okay, love it. Okay, most underrated health marker.
I'll just leave it at homocysteine just because it's easy for me to say.
Okay, one thing women should ask their doctor at their next visit.
To check a comprehensive endocrine panel, including full thyroid panel, adrenal markers, and full hormone panel. I will tell you that I often get patients who come to me and they say, I already had my hormones checked and I'm not perimenopause, so that's not what's going on. And they had some checked, but they didn't have a full panel check.
Okay. One sign your body is asking for support, not discipline.
I would say, so if your sleep is off and you don't know why, that's a good one. I know you said one. But I think recovery. If you are doing anything and you're like, oh man, I'm just going to keep going. I think paying attention to recovery, your body will give you a sign until you have to listen. So you might want to pay attention before it makes you. I mean, that's it. A decision will be made by you or for you.
Great. Okay. One word you wish women would associate with midlife health.
Resilience.
Love that. Oh, it's a good one to end on. Thank you, Dr. Devan. If people would like to find out more about you and possibly work with you, where can they find you?
We have a clinic in Florida and in New Orleans. So what we are growing is the concept. I mean, our clinic is where we see patients, but obviously my passion is to train other providers and educate patients very outside of my clinic, right? For sure, on the stuff that I'm very passionate about, that I've seen make such big differences in my ability to help and do medicine differently. And that's our coined term, reformative medicine. And so they can go to that website, and it is kind of a website of education, but I think a patient can go there, a doctor can go there. Again, anybody can be smart. And so if you want to find more, I would say that going to reformativemedicine.com would be the place to go kind of learn more about our triangle, and then we have, I'm actually releasing a book this year on reformative medicine and that philosophy. And then we are developing training and software and all kinds of ways that, in answer to your question, Alex, we hope that everybody can get their own amount of however much, their own information they want from their home. And one thing I am very excited to spread more is this concept of preventative care. I think that there's no such thing. We have not done that, and we should not. Prevention starts with the patient and kind of educating them, and prevention's every day in the home of your own microculture. And care is something that the doctor and the provider is here to give. And so the hope is that reformative medicine kind of bridges that gap better than we have done in the past.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
What a gift. What a gift. Thank you so much for coming on and spreading your incredible wisdom with our listeners. We love it so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Happy New Year.
You too.